Good evening, everyone. My name is Lafayette. Pleasure to see y'all again, or nice to meet you for the first time. This is my channel where we make it make sense. So, I recently put up a post where I unpacked some things in reference to some things that were said by Brother Jesus. And so tonight I'm going to continue with that same flow, except this time I'm going to be speaking about the 3 days in the tomb and the resurrection of Brother Jesus. Because unknown to a lot of us and known to a lot of us, but we don't know where else to look or go to get no answers. A lot of this information has been watered down and tweaked and just all kind of everything to keep us off our chosen path. Because there's a power in the spoken word. There's a power in information. And so as man truly understands truth, then he himself can become that truth. But if you don't have an understanding of a real truth, then you cannot eternalize it, and become that truth. So I'm here to share that honest truth with my brothers and sisters so that you have another option now moving forward as far as raising your awareness goes. Okay? So this is my channel. We make it make sense. And the first thing I'm going to touch on is about the resurrection. Now, you will catch me looking down because during my research and things, I've written down a lot of the information that I'm about to share. I don't want to misquote it or anything, so I've written it down. So I will be reading from my notes in order to deliver this message to you. So, firstly, with the resurrection. Matthew, excuse me, pardon me. Not the resurrection first, but we're going to speak about the 3 days in the tomb after his crucifixion. Now, Matthew 60 through 66 talks about after the crucifixion and, Jesus being transported to the tomb, where they end up rolling a stone over it and sealing it, right? But what Matthew don't share with you is where was Jesus and what was going on with Brother Jesus those 3 days that he was not present in this reality. And so I'm going to share an awareness with you so that you can have a higher degree of understanding of this whole thing that took place. So it goes like this. The 3 days that Jesus was in there, Jesus did not sleep within the tomb. The body is manifest of the soul, but soul is manifest, meaning that the body can't exist without the soul, but the soul can exist without the body, right? The soul lives without a physical body. And in the realm of souls unmanifest, which means in the spirit realm, in the realm of the spirit where no physical beings are in the spirit realm. In the realm of souls unmanifest, Brother Jesus went, and taught. He opened up the prison doors and set the prisoners free. He broke the chain of captive souls and led the captives to the light. He sat in council with the patriarchs and the prophets of the olden times, the masters of all times and climes. He met, and in the great assemblies he stood forth and told the story of his life on earth, and of his death in sacrifice for man, and of his promise to clothe himself again in a garb of flesh and walk with his disciples, just to prove the possibilities of man, to give to them the key of life and of death and of the resurrection of the dead. In the council, all the masters sat and talked about the revelations of the coming age, when she, the holy breath, shall fill the earth and air with holy breath and open up the way of man to perfectness and endless life. Now, let's unpack that right quick. Now, that is what was going on with Brother Jesus while those 3 days while his physical body was in the tomb. He went back to the spirit realm and he met with the masters and prophets of all the olden times and climes. He freed the souls that were lost in the astral. You know what I'm saying? That didn't know how to get back to the light. And he was going over his walks in the world and how he came here to be a willing sacrifice for men. Now, that's what was going on in the 3 days. They don't teach you that in these houses of learning, because for them to teach you that, then that would mean that there is realities outside of this physical one. It kills the mystery. Now you can't be like, oh, well, is there something after death? Or do you know, is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Or whatever. Like, truth needs no foundation to stand on. And the powers that be understand that very well. And so they make sure to minimize the amount of truth that they pass along, so that you don't end up ultimately putting two and two together and figuring out this whole thing that they've had up and running for millennia. So that is the unedited version of Matthew 60 through 66 that was supposed to be a part of that setup, but for whatever reasons it remained, or it got removed, so that people didn't get that part. So now we move forward to we're going to go to Matthew 28, where it speaks about the resurrection of Jesus. Now, Matthew 28 speaks, I'm sure a lot of us maybe have heard the story about the resurrection and everything, but once again, as I stated, everything has been watered down. There have not been given the whole honest truth to these stories, which would allow us to have a higher awareness about how this whole thing works that we call life, spirit, and physical. You know, and that was for a purpose, because that was for the program. So now we're going to speak about the resurrection, and I can assure you, you never heard this version before. Excuse me. So, the resurrection. In the garden of Salom, in the garden of Salom, or the garden of Salom, was silent on the Sabbath day. The Jewish soldiers watched, and no one else approached the tomb. But on the following night, the scene was changed. At midnight, every Jewish soldier heard a voice which said, Adon Mashi Kumi, which meant, Lord Jesus, arise. And they suppose, again, the friends of Jesus were alert, and they were coming to take up the body of their Lord. The soldiers were alert, with swords unsheathed and drawn. And then they heard the words again. It seemed as though the voice was everywhere, yet they saw no man. The soldiers blanched with fear, and still to flee meant death for cowardice. And so they stood and watched. Again, all this was before the sun arose. The heavens blazed with light. A distant thunder seemed to herald forth a coming storm. And then the earth began to quake. And in the rays of light they saw a form descend from heaven. They said, Behold, an angel comes. And then they heard again, Adon Mashi Kumi. Now, excuse me for not correctly pronouncing this. I'm trying my best, but however you say it, you get the message. They heard the voice again. Adon Mashi Kumi. And then the white-robed form tramped on the Roman seal, and then he tore it into shreds. He took the mighty stone in his hand as though it were a pebble from the brook, and cast it to the side. And Jesus opened his eyes. Now, they don't tell you when the stone was removed that the body, the physical body of Brother Jesus was still in the tomb. I believe they said it was empty or something like that, or they seen, a spirit form or something. I'm not sure. I have to go look at that again. But this variation of it, this version of it, and then, where is that? And then Jesus opened his eyes and said, "All hail the rising sun, the coming of the day of righteousness." And then he folded up his burial gown. Like he got up physically, folded up his gown, folded up his burial gown, his headbands and his coverings, and laid them all aside. He arose for a moment, stood beside the white-robed form, which was the angel, and the weaker soldiers fell to the ground and hid their faces in their hands. They saw the body of the Nazarene transmute. They saw it change from mortal to immortal form. See that throat shocker getting a little bit shaky. It's like some don't want this message to come out, but we gonna unpack this. And then it disappeared. The soldiers heard a voice from everywhere. Yea, from everywhere it said, "Peace, peace on earth, goodwill to men." The soldiers hastened to Jerusalem and to the priests and said, "Behold, the Nazarene has arisen, as he said. The tomb is empty, and the body of the man is gone. We know not where it is." And then they told about the wonders of the night. Caiaphas called the council of the Jews, and he said, "This news must not go forth that Jesus has arisen from the dead. For if it does, all men will say he is the Son of God, and all of our testimonies will be proven false." And then they called the 100 soldiers in and said to them, "You know not where the body of the Nazarene is resting now. So if you will go forth and say that his disciples came and stole the body while you slept, each of you shall have a silver piece, and we will make it right with Pilate for the breaking of the seal." The soldiers did as they was told. Excuse me. So now we gonna unpack it some more. Now this was back then letting you know that straight out the gate, they never ever had any intention on sharing the divine truth, potentialities, and possibilities of man with the collective. Never. It was never their intention to let the rest of us, the world, know truly what Brother Jesus came and accomplished here during his walking life. And so we have to be mindful of the information that we take in, because it's a heck of a game that's been being played here, and it's a game for your soul. It's a game for the soul. You know what I'm saying? And you gotta understand that we can't just keep blindly moving forward and allowing anybody to just share and tell us anything and move along with it, when the prize is our eternal soul and salvation. So if anything is worth double checking, triple checking, and checking again just to make sure, it would definitely be when it comes to your soul. Make sure that what you're putting your faith in unquestioningly is standing firm on the foundation of truth and not falsehood presented in a distorted way to seem as a truth, but if it's really questioned, it honestly has no foundation to stand on. And with that, I'll leave y'all now. I'm just portion, little piece at a time. I appreciate y'all for sitting with me through this. But that is the unedited version of the 3 days Brother Jesus was in the tomb, and then what happened initially for the resurrection. I'm going to touch on the 3 visits he had with his apostles and the sacred brotherhood that he was a part of, and so on and so forth, on my next video. But it's a whole lot to unpack. But the truth is here. It's time for the truth. The truth will set you free. Know that. The truth will set you free. So let's wake up. Peace.